Let's get to know about the Syrian Civil War. Let me pull up a map and show you where Syria is. Now, Syria is an Islamic state. The Sunnis of Muslim community makes up to 74% of the total population, and the rest of the population is Shias. So the Syrian Civil War began long back in the year 2000 when Bashar al-Assad became the president who succeeded his father Hafiz. Now this Bashar al-Assad is an interesting person. He's the one around which the entire civil war story revolves. Basically, more than a president, he's a dictator. Since the beginning of his presidency, the Syrian population complained about high unemployment, widespread corruption, a lack of political freedom, and state repression. Now if you all remember, in the year 2011, Arab Spring began. For those of you who don't know what is Arab Spring, well, it's a series of anti-government protests which actually began in North Africa, that is in Egypt, and spread across the Middle East. Now a similar thing happened in Syria. The Syrian population started protesting against its dysfunctional government. It all started in the southern city of Deraa. So because of this protest, the government used deadly force against them, which means Bashar al-Assad's government used deadly forces against its own population. Now this triggered nationwide protests demanding the president's resignation. Things got so bad from a peaceful protest, it became a violent protest. Even the opposition took up arms. Slowly the entire state of Syria got divided into eastern half consisting of rebel groups and western half consisting of Bashar al-Assad's government. And not to forget, there's a third group as well, that is the Islamic State, also known as ISIS, under the leadership of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who is the caliph. So this is what led to the Syrian Civil War. Now let's get to know the scary as well as the tricky part. The president of Syria, that is Bashar al-Assad, is not a very good guy. He has been condemned by many international leaders and organizations for many cruel acts and also using chemical weapons against his own people. Despite condemnation from international organizations, Bashar al-Assad's forces retook the eastern city of Aleppo from the rebels with the help of Russian military and also with a little help and approval of the present American government under Trump administration. Now Aleppo is the largest city and the economic capital of Syria. It is now the key battleground of Syrian Civil War. Now you must be having a serious question. Why is the United States and Russia helping this guy Assad? Actually, Russia is the only one who is actively helping Assad forces, not the United States. Only recently, after Trump became president, the Republican government showed interest in military cooperation with Russia over Syrian war. Otherwise, under Obama's administration, the United States, Turkey, Saudi Arabian government gave financial support to the rebel group in taking down Assad's forces. Now coming to the question, why they are helping Syria? Before I answer that, try to understand this. War is not so simple that you can easily say one side is fighting against the other. No, it is not like that. It's a bit more complicated. After all, everything starts out of complication. The Syrian rebel forces consist of a lot of different groups. Some are volunteers, some wanting to defend their towns like the Kurdish group. Then some wants to fight Assad's brutality, some are religiously motivated, and then there are groups who are directly supported by the United States, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, which is the Free Syrian Army, about which moments back I told you. Then there are also groups that are solely financed by the Saudi Arabian and Turkish government for creating Islamic State under the Sharia law. So it's a combination of groups with different aims, including some groups supported by Al-Qaeda as well. You see, the Syrian war is not that simple to understand. If you were in Syria, you would face difficulty in finding who is fighting for whom. So that's the situation. Now here's a little history. Russia and Syria's relationship goes back to Cold War times, when the Soviet Union gained influence in Syria in the 1970s, giving aid and arms. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s, its influence in Syria reduced. In 2000, when Vladimir Putin became president of Russia and Bashar al-Assad became president of Syria. Now, if you all know this or not, Putin is a direct product of Soviet Union ideology. It goes back to the time when he was a KGB agent. Anyways, coming back to the present, after becoming the president, Putin wanted to expand his military power and wanted to restore Russia as a great power again, how it was once during Cold War times. Now this is how relationship between Putin and Assad grew in recent times. Now in theory, Russia and United States are fighting ISIS in Syria, but they are also attacking each other's supporting groups. They are basically fighting proxy wars without indulging directly. But this year, the American ended their support for Syrian rebels, and the Trump administration is in cooperation talks with Russia. Now for Russia, there's a key naval facility at the Syrian port of Tartus, which serves as Russia's sole Mediterranean base. So you see, the Russian help to Syria is purely self-interest based. That is to create an arms market in Middle East as well as to expand Russian military power to regain the status of being called as a world power. And now the US wants to cooperate with Russia over Syrian crisis. And one more important aspect is that Middle East is closer to Russia compared to United States or United Kingdom. So any unrest in Middle East is a potential threat and may affect the large Muslim population in Chechnya, which is Russia, as well as nearby countries of Russia like Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. There has been many instances when some Muslim citizens of Russia went and joined anti-Assad forces. So the Syrian Civil War is a big threat to Russia more than the West. Now for United States, the benefit of fighting a war in Syria is called upon as a humanitarian act, which is highly unlikely to believe. Its role is believed to be similar to that of Russia, that is gaining control over Middle East. But I'm sure there's more to it with respect to great strategic value to the United States. So this is what is happening in Syria.